Guys, welcome to the show. My name is Brooks Conkle. I'm the founder of Gulf Coast BizCon. Super excited today. Real quick, I'm going to tell you about BizCon. So Gulf Coast BizCon mission is to connect and engage and empower entrepreneurs and side hustlers. We just believe when these people get together, good things happen. Good stuff happens. So that's our entire mission. And so today I'm super excited. I got a guy named Kevin Mohler on with me today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. I got some notes because I don't want to mess anything up. So he was scheduled to be a speaker at Gulf Coast BizCon, which was scheduled for April 10th. You all know what happened. We're in the middle of COVID-19 quarantine. And so we're adjusting some of the things that we're doing. But let me tell you a little bit about Kevin. So I'm just going to kind of read some stuff because it's really interesting. He's a highly regarded, globally recognized entrepreneur, author, trainer, and professional speaker, having built 6 companies totaling over $100 million in revenue by the age of 30. Huge difference, $1 million, $100 million. He has been featured in Home Business Connection and Success from Home Magazine and has been interviewed numerous times on radio, podcasts, and TV shows. He's spoken to business groups, corporations, schools, sales teams, executive boards, churches, and internationally to audiences as large as 14,000. It's a lot of people. He shared the stage with some icons like Les Brown, Robert Kiyosaki, Grant Cardone, and a host of others. You guys probably heard some of those folks. He's given over 600 keynote presentations, has built several multi-million-dollar companies, all before the age of 30. He's the founder of strategiclifedesign.com, teaching you how to strategically design every aspect of your life to transform the life you have to Let me start that over. Teaching you how to strategically design every aspect of your life to transform the life you have to the life you truly desire. All right, cool. Let me bring him on. Kevin, how you doing, sir?
Man, I'm blessed, Brooks. I'm doing great. Excited to be here with you and on the show with you. How are you?
I'm doing really well, man. I probably should have read that more slowly, more enthusiastically. I don't know, man. I know I didn't do it justice, but like I don't usually like read the bios of people. I usually just kind of give a couple of lines. But I was looking at yours and I was like, man, this is kind of crazy. This is some crazy stuff. I think people would want to know, just want to know some of the stuff about this guy that we're going to have a conversation with. So I decided to go all out, man, and read it. So read the whole thing.
Well, I appreciate you, man. It's my honor and privilege to be on here.
Good. No, thanks, man. Glad to have you. So we're gonna go in probably a number of directions on like entrepreneurship, mindset, starting a business. I know a lot about all this stuff. And you and I know previously met once before, had coffee, and we talked a little bit about like our stories and our past, but like give us like the, 2 or 3 minute version of who you are and like how you got to kind of where you are today. If there's even a possible way to give the 3 minute version. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first of all, I was born and raised in Texas. I live here in South Alabama. Moved here when I was 6 years old. So this is home. My background was very simple. I watched my parents growing up. My father had a 10th grade education, worked in the environmental industry. I did not want to do anything environmental. My mother became a nurse, went to USA Hospital Mobile, worked, as a nurse at that hospital. And I didn't want to do anything at that point in my life that was healthcare related. So for some reason, at a very, very young age, I was attracted to the construction industry, probably because I was a kid that loved to play with Legos and build things and see things and how they really worked. And so I decided to work construction. I started working for a gentleman named Craig Sinclair, who's a very well-known third-generation custom home builder here around where we live in South Alabama, the Gulf Coast area. And worked for him for a number of years, was very aggressive in learning construction. We didn't have any titles on the construction crew. It was too small for that. But I was basically what I would call a semi-foreman at a very young age. By the time I graduated high school, I'd taken 5 drafting and design courses in trade school to learn drafting design, decided to go to college, did not get a scholarship. And so I was working construction 40 to 50 hours a week during the daytime and going to college, 15 credit hours a semester, 5 nights a week, getting all my basics done for an architecture degree. I did that for 2.5 years.
Wow.
And I didn't have a life. My life was owned by work and school. And I was struggling to keep my grades up, was just financially broke. I had a 98 model truck with a leaking radiator I couldn't afford to fix. I had this dream in my heart of one day, someday doing something great, to be able to serve people, to have fun, to do mission and ministry, to travel, to live this life of freedom. And I think that's what I've always fell in love with, was this idea of freedom. And not that I was not a good employee. I think I was a great employee, and tried not to complain, did my best work, had integrity with what I did, worked extremely hard. But I wanted to have freedom in life to call my own shots. And I knew that I was going to have to own my own business. I was going to have a type of business that would give me that type of freedom so I could live life by design. And what happened for me is something very interesting. I'd started my first business as a side hustle. I needed to make some extra income. It took off for me. I fell in love with all of a sudden becoming an entrepreneur because I started just to supplement my income. Didn't think it was going to be anything big. Within 7 months, I quit construction, went full-time as an entrepreneur. It's the last job I ever had. That was almost 13 years ago. And from there, started to scale my business because I had so many mentors and coaches that were pouring into me. So I scaled it across the country. And then when I did that, I had the need to travel to teach people what I was doing. And so because I did that, a lot of the audience were individuals that owned other corporations, companies, were part of associations, were connected in their respective fields. And that's what led to being asked to be a speaker. And I didn't consider myself a speaker at that point. And it ended up tailoring to a speaking company and coaching consulting firm that we have today called Strategic Life Design. And so, and again, from there, once I became free, right? Once I had this freedom vehicle to free up some cash flow and some time, we felt inspired by God to build other companies that help kids with special needs, start a nonprofit organization, do some missions and ministry work, start other companies and expand the speaking business. So we have 6 companies today in different industries, and it's been a blessing for sure.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Which that's good. I'm glad I gave you that because that's going to lead to like 37 questions. While you were saying all that, I wanted to interject, but I wanted to let you roll through it. You where you are today, like for this interview, this is a family business, correct? Isn't this the company
Yes.
that?
So with everything I do, with the 6 companies that I have, everything that has to do with medical, my mom is my partner because she's a nurse, so she has the medical background and I have the business background, so we work really well together. Got it.
Did when you started, I find that so interesting that you got the speaking engagements, but it wasn't your goal, like to be a speaker. Like when you began that, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you didn't set out to become a speaker, or that wasn't necessarily like a business that you strived for at that time. It's something that came out of like what you were doing in the innovations. I mean, is that what happened?
Yes, and even more so. I actually ran from speaking. In college, the worst class I had was public speaking.
Oh boy. Okay.
And I was absolutely terrified. I hated everything to do with it. I hated preparing for the talk because I was already nervous. I hated them saying the next person that's going to talk to the class is me. I hated walking up there. I remember just sweating profusely. I remember my knees knocking and just being so terrified to address an audience of students that were in class dreading it just like I was. And I never, ever wanted to be a speaker. In fact, I was almost hurled into my first speaking engagement. Interesting story. I was working on a project, ended up going to Mobile, expanding my business there, training people what I was doing and how we were doing it. I actually had another gentleman lined up to train. And at the beginning, he said, man, I'm not feeling well. I don't think I'm gonna be able to do this. Kevin, you're going to have to do it. And I'm like, no, I can't. There's no way. I cannot do this. I'm not prepared. I haven't. He's like, I'm telling you, you've got to do it. And what happened was he literally was feeling perfectly fine. He knew that I would never take that leap. Unless he forced me to. And that was my actual first time addressing an audience outside of school.
So good.
I was not prepared and it wasn't any good, but I mulled my way through it. And then that was the first one. So
he tossed you in the pool, man. He said,
tossed me in the pool. Said, you better swim or you can sink.
You better figure it out, big guy. Oh my gosh. That's someone that knew you, I think, and knew that you knew you had what it took and knew that you would do great. You know what I mean? Someone that gave you that push because he knew you could swim when you fell in the pool. I don't know. He had to give you the elbow, and he gave you the elbow. It sounds like.
He knew that I could, and he knew that I didn't think I could. So, he had to throw me out of the nest, which is, that's what this is all about. I train speakers. I have speaking boot camps that I run and train people how to speak. And one of the things I try to share with people is that a lot of folks think that speakers are natural. They're born to speak. They're created to speak. That is not true. Couldn't be further from the truth, because if you rewound and knew me 13 years ago, the people that did know me 13 years ago are astounded that I can even address an audience and hold their attention much less do what we do with auditoriums filled with thousands of people.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I'm astounded that you can learn that skill. And it is a skill that you absolutely can learn. You can go from being terrified construction worker and a college dropout, which is what my resume reads. That's who I am. That's who I was back then, to being a requested speaker. You can actually do that if that's something that somebody wants to do. And he knew that I could take that next step. I didn't believe I could, so he forced me to do it. Which is a lot like being an entrepreneur in general, even for people that don't
100%.
in being a speaker. You know, being an entrepreneur, I've once heard it said very well that it's like jumping off a cliff and building wings on the way down. That's kind of what it's like to become a speaker. It's like you force yourself to be uncomfortable, and that's how you get better. All growth in life comes from being uncomfortable. Everything we want is uphill. Everything we want in life is uphill, you know, including doing that.
I agree with that statement so much. It's almost like 100%, like 100% of growth comes out of discomfort. You know, I mean, I can think of very few circumstances where something great comes out the other side and, that was so easy. You know, like most of the times it's always through difficulty, which is really interesting. Do you still get nervous when you speak? So obviously you started at the, in the college class, you're super nervous. Or is there still like nerves every time you go, but now you've done it so many times, or are you like zero nerves whatsoever? Or like, how do you operate now?
I still get nervous before every single talk, because every talk that you have a new audience. So even if you know the content, then your nervousness is usually in the initial beginning of the talk where it's, you know, you're coming next. They're starting to address your bio or however they're doing the introduction. You're hearing the introduction. You're called up. You have to walk up to the stage. Your nerves are going to be going haywire. But here's the good news. If you know the content, as soon as you actually address the stage and start talking, those feelings start to subside. And if you're brand spanking new, you may be a nervous wreck the entire time. But the good news is that length of time starts to shorten. So now when I go to address an audience and it's maybe another state, maybe an auditorium I've never been to, you're behind stage, you're working with people trying to get the microphone, and even sometimes they do makeup and stuff. It's crazy. But you're getting all that stuff done and preparing and talking with the film crew, where are the cameras at, what do I need to do, what am I going to need to address? You're doing all this preparation, and then they start, whether it's intro music or this, you know, depending on the speaking engagement, obviously. But the big ones are usually the ones I get the most questions on. Do you get nervous? All of that is going to be nerve-wracking. And once you come out and you address the audience, as long as you know the content and you know the pillars of the talk, a lot of people that prepare and they know the meat and potatoes is what I call it of the talk. They haven't figured out what they're going to do at the very beginning to get the audience's attention. And a lot of times they have not figured out their close. And they become a nervous wreck towards the end of the talk, because how do you end a talk?
Good point.
If you haven't figured it out, your nerves are going to go like this, because you're supposed to be talking while your brain is trying to think, how are you going to end it? And if you know the beginning and the end of your talk and you know the content, then usually those nerves will start to subside. You can address the audience, do everything you need to do the close that you knew you were going to close with the audience, and then boom, you're done. So it does get better, but yes, I still get nervous before every talk with just about it, as long as it's a new audience. You know, if I'm going to a conference room, like sometimes I do leadership meetings for corporations. If I'm going to see the same team of people 3 days in a row and do a 1 hour talk 3 days in a row, like a workshop, as soon as the first 5 minutes is done, there's no nervousness anymore. And then the rest of the 2 days is fine. But if it's a new audience, even with the same talk, I still get nervous.
Day 3, you're giving high fives in the morning and all that stuff when you get going. Yeah.
Man,
if you had told me that you didn't get nervous at all, I would have either one question said, wait a minute, or I don't know what I would have thought. But no, I'm glad that you just said, 100%. Like, because I find that things that I do, because like giving a talk is I'm not going to call it a performance, but it's a sort of like performance, like you're performing, like you're playing live music, or like you're doing whatever. You're giving a talk. And so I for most people I've talked to, that's very natural, like to have those nerves. But like the information, the tips you just gave is huge, man. Having, having your game plan and that those nerves will subside. Have you ever had a plan opening or closing? Does that always work that you found out? Or have you ever had openings and closings that it's planned, but it does not go the way you expect? Or does it usually go how you want it to?
It usually goes how I want it to. Like, I follow one of the
Cool.
tips I got from some famous comedians, and they never would test their jokes to their biggest audiences. They would always
Gotcha.
do like the stand-up comedy or the little side thing in town where there's, gathering of 20, 30, 50, 100 people, some small comedian thing, and they would test their jokes and see the audience reactions, where then they would know what it was like when they addressed a big audience. And that's what I do with my talks. If I've got an executive board and I want to share a story that I think relates really well with the talk, if I don't see them engaged, if they're sitting there checking their phone email while I'm telling a story, it's not a good story. It's not engaging. It's not going to leave an impact. And I'm not going to use that with the bigger audience. So yes, half of the things that you do, it's just like marketing in a business. Half of the things you do don't work at all. The other half of the things you do work enough, and then you figure out how to make them better. That's kind of like speaking. It's the same thing. Some of your stories will really resonate and captivate an audience, and then you can figure out ways to make it even better. And some of the things you do, you're like, yeah, that probably didn't work real well. I don't think it's going to make an impact. And you just toss it out and replace it with a new idea. But yes, I do have some general things. For example, I like to, depending on the audience and the topic of the talk, I will, when I share my story at the beginning, because one of the things I train speakers on is nobody will hear you until they know you. Nobody will hear you until they know you. If I come out and you say, well, Kevin's done this, $100 million in revenue and all this stuff, and then all of a sudden it's some guru that's talking, it's not relating to 99.9% of the audience, which means they turn their ears off. They're not listening. They can hear tips that can change their life, and it will go in one ear out the other because you're not relatable. But that's why I love to swing back and say, man, if you read my resume, it's a construction worker. It's a college dropout. My dad's got a 10th grade education. My mom's a nurse. I'm a normal person that is approachable. I'm a normal person, just like anybody else that may be listening to this, that has done some things in life which have been a blessing, have figured some things out, had a lot of great coaches along the way. So you make yourself relatable. That always helps with the audience. And then the story I like to oftentimes refer to towards the end is that with my background in architecture and construction, as crazy as that may have been the start of my life, because it's not really something that's in the present of my life, in each of us, there's an architect and a builder. We can design the life that we want, and we can go build it and create something amazing, something totally different than we've ever seen before, the life that we really want. And so that's a great closing that I'll try to tailor towards the audience that I refer to quite often, depending on the talk. Mm-hmm. But I do have some stories and some intros and some outros that I do refer to that have been proven for me, that have made an impact, that every audience, whether it's a real estate association talking to some of their best real estate agents during their award ceremony, or a military function, and anything in between, I can use some of those and pull on them because I know they work.
Gotcha. No, that's good. Do you, everything that you've done, like getting to now, so, multiple companies that you are involved in, how much of it has been planned, and how much of it would you say has kind of, you've followed the path and the adventure of life, and one opportunity has led you to another? Like, how do you kind of weigh those two things out?
Man, that's a great question. That's a great question. For me, I almost want to say none of it's been planned. And I know that sounds almost weird, so let me explain, because I am big on strategy. I mean, the brand is Strategic Life Design, right? So you need a strategy, which is definitely a plan. Hoping life changes. Hope is not a strategy. Okay, that's a wish. That's a dream. That's something that's pie in the sky, like trying to, like your financial welfare being established on the principle that you might win the lottery. Not a very smart financial plan. So I am big on strategy and designing things. I try to design my business around how I want to live my life versus my life around my business. One of the reasons for that, like an example, is right now I'm in the conference room of our hyperbaric oxygen therapy facility. We have a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. It's the largest in Alabama or Mississippi. And we treat a variety of things like stroke patients, traumatic brain injury, cerebral palsy, you name it, a lot of different things.
Wow.
But the reason why I'm here today and not in my office is because I do not have an office. I don't want one. I like to work remotely. I like to be spontaneous, be able to travel and do what I want to do. So I design the business around my life, then my life around my business. But that doesn't mean that I just dreamed up the hyperbaric center one day. There's a long story behind that. When I started my first business, I did it because I saw what I thought was almost a proven way to make an extra $300 to $500 a month. And I desperately needed that in my life. So that's the reason why I said yes. Then I found out it was so scalable, which I didn't even know what scalable meant 13 years ago. And I had mentors that fell into my life, that cared about me, that pointed me in that direction, taught me how to do it. So now I started down this path, and that's when I quit my architecture school, dropped out of school, and went full-time as an entrepreneur. That was not the plan, but it guided me that direction. And then once I had some cash flow, some time freedom, and then started my speaking business, which I didn't even know at the time was a business. I just thought I was going to be speaking. And it turned into a business that started getting some demand, where I started to learn, wow, this is a whole separate business here. That is when my nephew was diagnosed with autism. And my mom being a nurse, me being passionate about business, we decided to open up a facility to help children with special needs. And we went down that journey and started traveling the country together and going to conferences and learning. And part of the Autism Center was going to be the hyperbarics division of that company. And then we decided to get a much bigger chamber, and we decided to make it a DBA. For those of you that don't own a corporation, it means that you operate underneath an entity, but with a different name. So we could brand it differently. And then we decided, no, we're going to separate a totally separate business. And then it became the American Hyperbaric Center. Well, when we started to see families that needed different things that financially could help them, we decided, well, it'd be cool if we could raise the money, which is a nonprofit. So then we started the nonprofit organization. Yep. And so it's almost like I've just kind of ebbed and flowed with where I felt like God was leading us based on the need that we saw in front of us and an opportunity to fulfill that need, and just having the faith to move forward, jump off the cliff and grow wings on the way down, figure it out. Surround yourself by people that are smarter than you. And that's the smartest thing I've ever done, by the way, is surround myself by people way better than me. And I think that is one of the biggest keys to being a successful entrepreneur. Is it's not just top-down leadership. It is top-down leadership, but not intelligence. I want to surround myself by a team of people that are way smarter, way better than me. And that's how we make everything roll.
I like it, man. If I can tell you that if I had to have all the answers of how everything would operate and how it would work, I would never get started. And I think that the majority of people, entrepreneurs, if you have to have all that information, like, it's not going to work, because you're just not going to have all the answers. I don't think I wasn't going to come up with an example, but I'm like, look at Amazon. Like, I mean, obviously it's a giant company. I mean, they did not think that they were going to be doing all the things. I mean, maybe they did, but like, just how many innovations and changes that company's gone through, from like, oh, we only sell books online, to then we sell everything online, to then that's not even like, I think they get the bulk of their revenue from like their web services and stuff. I think like, if I understand correctly, just how many different verticals that one company's in, and if it had to understand, and obviously that's a giant example, right? Like, we can back way up to anyone, a smaller business. Like, if you had to think about, if you had to have all those answers up front, I just wonder, like, would that company have gotten off the ground? If Jeff was like, well, I have to have all the answers up front of exactly what we're going to look like 20 years from now. I just think you put yourself in a corner if you feel like you have to have all the answers, and
you fail because you fail to start. If you wait to get all your ducks in a row, your ducks are not going to get in a row. Timing, it can be perfect in business. It's never going to be perfect for you, ever. When opportunities, most of the time when an opportunity comes, it's the most inconvenient time you could figure it out. Like, the most inconvenient time, all of a sudden you've got this opportunity and it's not going to feel right, like the right time. And you got to be able to commit, and you got to be able to jump, and you got to have the faith that we're going to figure this out. I mean, I had a call this morning about a big business expense that we had to figure out today. Today was the deadline. Are we going to move forward with this? Are we not? And what do we want to do as far as humans? We want to get into the logical side of our brain. We want to start figuring out, does this make sense? Do I have a perfect plan in place? Here's the problem. Today's the deadline. I have to make a decision today.
Yep.
If I don't make a decision, that's a decision to not do it. So even not making a decision is a decision. I got to figure this out. There's a fork in the road. Am I going left or am I going right? I got to know today. And logically, I couldn't figure it out, but I chose to go forward with that investment because I have faith that we're going to be able to figure it out. I think that the team that we've assembled, with the opportunity that we were given, with the project that we have in front of us, we're going to figure out the way. I can already see half the way. The other half, I'm going to have to discover those steps along the way, and we bit the bullet and we're going for it. And it may flop, because I tell you what, I've flopped a lot. I've failed a lot. I have made a lot of mistakes. I've done a lot right. I've done a lot wrong. The whole time I feel like I'm either winning or I'm learning, because in life there's a cost to learning. There's a cost to go to college. Even if you get a scholarship, look how much time you have to spend of your life to go get that degree. There's a cost to everything that we do. That it's an investment of time and investment of resources, and we got to choose sometimes to go, and you don't always have it all figured out. So it's the same thing with like speaking. If you wait till you feel like you've got everything together, you're never going to be a speaker. You're never going to be a speaker. You got to just start. You got to commit. You got to draw the line in the concrete. Forget the sand. That's temporary. Draw it in the concrete and move forward. Decide to move forward, especially in the land of being uncomfortable. Everything we want in our life is outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
Period.
I'm telling you,
the wealth, the family, the respect, the money, you name it. If you want it in life, it's going to be uncomfortable to get it, especially if you want it faster. It's just the way it is.
And you said something. You said winning or learning. You didn't say winning or losing. You're either winning or learning. You see the failure as a learning opportunity. It's funny. I've had multiple conversations with people on failing and failure, and how we know it's so logical. Like, it's all a part of being a business owner, entrepreneur. Like, in fact, it's like just as much of your wins, you may have the same amount or more like failures or things that are learning opportunities, right? Like, right. But yet we don't like. They're just so weird, because that's not kind of what's like highlighted or celebrated. And I get it, because it's kind of like, businesses are kind of like an Instagram profile or whatever. Like, you don't think to snap a photo of something like terrible that happened, or it doesn't make very good PR or press or whatever, but yet it's a reality. And I think that the more people that can kind of understand it and feel more comfortable with it, that like, hey, it never stops hurting. Like hitting the brick walls, like they continue to hurt. Like, they hurt every time, but just knowing that it's like, man, it's gonna happen. I think the more people that talk about that, that's honestly one of my personal passions. And for this brand is to let people know, especially aspiring people that want to start something or create something, that like, that's going to be a part of the journey. And that it may even be like your first 3 ideas may not even work out. It may be your 4th idea that actually works, just to not stop, and just to keep learning, and then try to win or learn. I mean, I love that, man, that you said that is so good. I want to switch to mindset real quick. So I know you're huge into mindset. So actually I interviewed a really cool young lady who runs a company. She's a clinical psychologist. This is her background. So she's giving me, we're talking science, brain, and man, we were geeking out on all this stuff. And I know that the brain is so amazing. And I don't know if that's like the side that you go into. I know that you, it's huge for you. And I know that it's huge for all people, but like, why do you think mindset is so important? Like, why? I mean, like, why is it such a big deal? Why can't I just wake up and get going? Why can't I just live life? Why can't I just work, man? Like, why is my focusing on my mind? Like, why is that such a big deal?
Well, your mind is the computer that runs every aspect of your life. And if you'll understand a lot like through this story. So there were 2 shoe salesmen. One of them flies into this country. He's there to expand operations and expand business into this new country. And he lands in the company jet, and he goes out there and he goes to this village. He sees this village where there's, basket weavers weaving baskets, and there's children playing soccer, and there's people selling fish and metal workers. And he notices that nobody out there is wearing shoes. And so he contacts the corporate office. He's like, there's no opportunity here. This place, they don't even wear shoes. This is definitely not where we're going to be in business. Well, while he was flying out there, one of his competition had found out that company was looking at expanding in that country. So they sent one of their top sales reps into that country to figure out what was going on, do their own market research. And so in that same exact village, the guy looks and he sees the kids playing soccer and the basket weavers and the people selling fish in the market and the metal workers. And he calls the company and he says, send double the order of everything we thought we were going to do in this country, because we have a huge opportunity. Nobody here wears shoes. And it's the mindset that is the difference in the 2 outcomes of 2 people that were given the exact same opportunity, the exact same timing, the exact same market, the exact same product, who looked at it through different lenses of life, which we call our mindset, and they had 2 drastically different outcomes. And you can take somebody skydiving. This is something interesting because I'm an adrenaline junkie. I love to live life. I love anything you can think of. If it's a hobby, I'm pretty much into it. Tomorrow I leave to go to Venice, Louisiana. I'm going to go chase some yellowfin tuna.
Okay.
You know, I ride motorcycles. I've totaled 2 of them when I was growing up, stunt riding. Like, I love to live life and do crazy things. It's a lot of fun. But skydiving is something I love to do as well. And when you take a human being and you put them in a plane and they jump out, there's 1 of 2 things that can happen to them mentally. Some brains secrete cortisol. And cortisol, it inhibits the growth of bones. It is an immunosuppressant. It is something that is really submitted in the brain from fear. And it's not a good thing to be faced with that when the other folks have a different reaction from jumping from a plane, and they have a rush of endorphins, which has like an opioid effect to the brain. It's a high. It is something that it makes it just elated to be able to jump out of a plane, where somebody else jumping out of the same exact plane from the same altitude, the same exact experience, has a totally different experience.
Yeah.
Because the mindset, I'm looking forward to jumping out of a plane. Somebody else looks and says, I'm absolutely terrified. We jump out of the same plane, totally different experiences. And that is, to me, it's just fascinating to see how the brain works. And it is the thing that we can use and observe and learn from. But most of our decisions are not made on a conscious level. Over 97% of our decisions are made subconsciously. Based on what? Based on the environment we've surrounded ourselves in our entire life, based on our education that we have or do not have, and based on the experiences that we can draw upon in our past. Those 3 things we have marinated in, and it has programmed our subconscious brain, which makes 97% of the decisions that we make every single day. So if most of the decisions we make, and scientists have proven this, if most of the decisions we make are not made consciously, they're made subconsciously. How do we change our subconscious mind? We change it by our mental programming. We change our experiences, our education, and we change our environment. And we change all that by the way that we program our brain, so we make better decisions. You know, why is it that somebody else can go out there and do the things that we cannot do when they're given the same amount of time and the same resources that we're given? What is the difference? It's the you factor. It's the mentality. And a lot of times people, what I've found, because we all struggle with this, we all struggle with procrastination in some area of our lives. We all know that there's things in life we should be doing that we're failing to do, whether that be health, marriage, family, business, finances, investing, you name it. There's something in our lives that we're not doing. How do we change our mind to get us to do the things that we know we should do that'll lead us to the life that we want to live? How do we do that? We have to learn more about our mindset. We have to learn more about programming our mindset to get us to do the things that we may be uncomfortable doing, to get us to do the things when we don't feel like doing it. There is a way to do that, and we have to have a deeper understanding of ourselves and how our mind works. And I would love to spend some time with her to learn some of the more clinical things that people can learn about the human brain. I like to teach the practical things, the things like how you start your day, things that people can use, whether they understand why our brains work the way that they work. If we just understand how we can change it, even if we don't understand how that outcome is actually produced,
right,
we can take action and make a different life.
Right, man. That's so good. Thank you for sharing all that. That's awesome. That is very interesting that the same circumstance, 2 people can see it and physically experience it completely differently, but nothing was different. It was the exact same physical thing for both people. Just what happened internally was completely different. That's so wild. And to know that, you can do things, you can take action in order to try to change the way that you react to an event is super cool, man. And it's amazing. Well, okay. Is there, kind of wrapping up, I know I have to let you go and get back to work. So is there anything that, that like when you do interviews and stuff that you wish someone would ask you, but they haven't, and you're like, man, I wish someone would ask me this, because we could talk about it for a second. If you don't, it's okay. Well,
my first response to that question would have been about the whole mindset thing, because I feel like I have worked on that more than anything else. It's not the enemy that's the problem. It's the inner me. In life, it's a 6-inch game. It's not 100 yards. It's 6 inches. It's right here. And if we can get this right, we can change everything else around us. Thoughts are things. And our beliefs shape our lives, or the experiences that we have. I just cannot preach about how important that is, because all this other stuff that we think in life that are important, that's so important, is not most often the most important thing. You get your mind right, and you can go accomplish great things in your life that people would say that would never happen. I can't tell you how many people have told me the things that I was working on were never going to work, and they've worked. And the last 13 years has been crazy. I can't imagine what the next 13 years is going to be like. But the thing I've worked the hardest on is myself, because at the end of the day, you can lead an army. The hardest thing to lead is yourself. And we work on that every single day to get the life outcome, personal, professional development, interviews like this, podcasts, learning from people, going to seminars, reading the books, not neglecting the assembly of smarter people, not neglecting the books. The difference, the point is this: there is no difference in the man or woman who cannot read and the man or woman who refuses to read. It's the exact same. And just like a steak, right? If those of you that like to cook, I'm sorry for all my vegetarian friends here, but if you like steak, you probably have your own little recipe, right? Your own little marinade, and you heat the grill up and you throw the steak on there and you hear tss, and it's sizzling. And when the heat turns up, that steak, all that marinade starts to come out of it, right? Some of you guys are getting hungry just hearing this. Well, our life is the same way. When you turn the heat of life up, whatever you've been marinating in is what comes out. In the midst of times like we have right now with COVID-19, represents unbelievable opportunities if our mind is right. Some people have completely shut down because what can we do? Woe is me. The rest of the country's closing down. Let me tell you something. No, it's not. Things are rocking and rolling for those that see a new opportunity. They see a new day. They're pivoting. They're doing things like this online. They're making things happen. And it all comes down to mindset. So again, it's not a different question, but oftentimes, Brooks, when I am doing these interviews, they're asking questions about what have I done? How did I build this? How did I start that? And I'm like, you guys are asking the wrong question. It all came from here first. What I did can be replicated by anybody. I'm not that smart. I'm not that great. I haven't done all these great things because I'm some anomaly, some genius that's figured it out. The difference is the mindset. I work on that every single day, and I think that's what's given us the edge to be able to build what we've built. So again, it's not a different question than what you already asked, but that's the one I wish people would ask more often, of not just myself, but all the people that they admire. For whatever reason they admire them, figure out this part, and you can probably do what they did if you can get this part right.
Do you think that most people hear you say everything you just said? I feel like the majority still hear that, and they're like, yeah, okay. I don't know, maybe I'll work on it. Like maybe I'll try to figure out this like mindset thing, or okay, maybe I'll read a book or something. I feel like the majority still don't like actively try to do something about it. Do you agree with that? And why is that?
I agree with that. And I think that it's because small hinges swing big doors. It's the little things in life that make the big difference. If you look at what is success, okay? Success is making responsible decisions, positive decisions, small ones, compounded every day for a long period of time. That's what success is. And failure is just the opposite. Failure is a life of blame, a life of not taking responsibility. It's errors and judgments, small ones, compounded over time through years, through a long period of time that ultimately leads to failure. I mean, if you look at health, like how do you get healthy? Most of us know how to get healthy. It's the small decisions we make every single day, or it's the small neglections that we make every single day that 10 years, 20 years from now is going to lead us somewhere. People don't get a heart attack in a day. They get it from day-to-day decisions over decades or periods of time in their life, making poor choices, small ones, stacked, compounded forever, that makes the biggest difference in their life. And a lot of us, we're looking for the big thing. What's the big thing that you did? What's the big thing that I can do? And it's the little things that stack over time. And we live in this instant gratification society where we get on Instagram and we scroll and we see people living these picturesque life, and we think that they did it overnight. And if we get on the right path and it doesn't happen fast, then we must not be doing it right, or that opportunity must not work for somebody like me. And that is crazy. That's one of the, Gary V, I love Gary. He's not my favorite personal development person on the planet, but I do like a lot of his concepts. And I love how he always tells people that you've got time. It's not an overnight thing. And I think that's the reason why people neglect this, Brooks. I think they look at it and they say, yeah, but maybe he was given some opportunity, or yeah, he's not telling us the full story, or yeah, what. That's why I try to make sure that I'm relatable to an audience, is because I am not special. Okay. What we've created has been amazing. It's been a blessing, but it's a day-to-day thing. It's overcoming those failures. It's understanding that success are those small positive decisions we make every single day, compounded over time, that leads to great outcomes. And it's staying on that path, even when you want to quit, even when you want to give up, stay on that path. And eventually you're going to get to where you want to go. And it's easy to neglect. You know why? It's easy to do the things we need to be doing, and it's easy not to. You know?
What are you most excited about right now that you're working on, out of what you've got going on? Like, what excites you the most?
Sorry, my phone's ringing. Let me decline this.
No, that's okay.
What excites me most right now is our nonprofit. We punted our first fundraiser to October 9th, I believe it is, at Rock Creek. We have a golf tournament that we're putting on, and that's going to raise some good money to do some great things for special needs, which is awesome. I'm excited about expanding my speaking business into different courses that can be done online, which is really fun for me, because one of the biggest challenges I have is with 6 companies. I can't be coaching people one-on-one all day long. So I do have a coaching program for people that either want to learn to be a speaker or want help getting more efficient with their time as an entrepreneur, that kind of stuff. But being able to put some of these things online will allow me to help more people. And that is a lot of fun. And it's a new learning curve for me.
Has that come out of what we're in right now? COVID-19, has that idea spun out of what we're in? That innovation?
I can't honestly say that it spun out of that, because I've been working on it for quite some time, but I will say it definitely has been amplified. Definitely has been amplified, because there's more people now that are online than there's ever been. People are learning that people are understanding that they need to learn new skills, that the financial future needs to be taken in our own hands, that there's things in our life that are going to happen. You know, COVID-19, I think, has been a great lesson that we can't plan for everything in life. Sometimes we're going to get the curveball. It's when we least expect it. Nobody had a plan in place for what we're experiencing right now. And that's called life. Right. It's part of the human experience, but we need new skills. We need to be more responsible. What is responsible? The ability to respond. That's what responsible is, the ability to make a response. We need to be more responsible. We need to learn more. We need to give more. We need to share more. We need to connect more. We need to get around smarter people. And I think that being online, me not being online, I think hurts a lot of people that I could be helping. Because I can't be one-on-one. I can't be one-on-one in 2 places at the same time. It's impossible. But when I put some of these things online, people can have access to it in a scalable way that can help more people. And I think that is awesome. But I can tell you one thing that has happened. I'm doing more actual speaking engagements online, which I have never done. Okay. I've done interviews, I've done podcasts, I've done radio shows, I've done all that kind of stuff, but I've actually never addressed audiences through online platforms as a speaking engagement. So now we've got companies that are like, hey, Kevin, I need you to talk to our executive team. I need to talk to you to our sales force. I need you to do this. And it's actually a virtual conference, which I don't mean like a webinar. I've done plenty of those, but like an actually live event that is done in person now is through technology. That's been a new experience, which has come from COVID-19, which has been pretty cool to see.
Yeah. So I've heard some speakers talk about some of that, saying how like, oh, this is a little bit different because I don't have crowd interaction, and I'm giving my talk and I'm doing my thing. And you as a speaker are having to kind of adjust yourself to like the dynamics of it and how it works. And like, that's very interesting to me. And I kind of smile when you mention that, because that's one of the many pivots of the brand Gulf Coast BizCon. So like, we're in the midst right now of looking into launching online summits. And the funny thing, man, is before I had never been interested for the brand to have any sort of online summit. I just wasn't interested. I'm like, I've never attended them. I knew about them. They've existed, just like Zoom and all these tools have existed for a number of years. But when this happened, and then I'm kind of doing further research and finding a number of people like doing them really well, and I'm looking at the details of how they operate, And I'm like, that makes sense. Like, why have I not been interested? There was no reason for me not to have been interested in producing online events. And so that's definitely like an innovation for our business, or adjustment, I guess I would say. And so, so we're doing the same thing. Maybe we may have some online summit where we're pitching you to speak, if it makes sense. I don't know. So
yeah, awesome.
That's great, man. That's cool. That's very cool. Okay, well, so tell everyone, if someone heard this and they're like, man, this Kevin guy is awesome, or I want to see, how can I become a speaker? How can I connect? How would you want people to connect with you, Kevin?
Man, we made it super simple. If you go to strategiclifedesign.com, there's actually a tab on there that says connect. If you click on connect, it's got an email address that will make its way to me. It's got a phone number that you can call that will get into my hands. It's got all my social media accounts, everything from YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, LinkedIn. I mean, you name it, it's all right there. And then under services, that's where you can find information on like my coaching program, if you're interested in that, my public speaking engagements, my speaker package, all that kind of stuff is right there on our website under those two tabs. So there's connect and services. Both of those two tabs will get you hooked up.
Great. So that's a spot to go. Well, Kevin, man, it's been great. I sincerely appreciate you taking the time today to chat with me and our community. And I look forward to connecting with you more in the future.
I appreciate you, man. If you need me for anything, holler at me. I appreciate being on your show. And listen, I love what you do for people. I love Gulf Coast BizCon, and I love that you've made this pivot. It's just an opportunity to reach more people. So I appreciate you and what you do for all the entrepreneurs that are out there.
Yes, sir. All right, man. All right. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Kevin.
Take care.
All right, guys. So that was Kevin Mohler with Strategic Life Design. Man, that talk was awesome. Completely enjoyed that. If you guys are listening to this and you're not already connected with our brand, just hop on over to gulfcoastbizcon.com. If you sign up with us and become a part of our crew, our community, you'll actually get early access to these interviews that come out via video, and they're also a part of our podcast. You will get access to the podcast episode about a week before the general public. So just make sure you're connected with us there. And thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys on the next one.